There is an important difference between doing your job well and feeling that you have to prove, at every moment, that you are working. When you know that someone can review how long you take, how often you log in, what you do on your screen, how much you produce, or how long you remain active, something can begin to change without you even noticing. You are no longer just working, you start thinking about how your work looks from the outside. Welcome to Inspira Plus. Thank you to those who are already part of this community and have returned for another reflection. And if you arrived here simply out of curiosity, you are welcome too. Today we are going to talk about something that is becoming increasingly common in many workplaces. What happens when feeling observed begins to change our behavior? Workplace supervision is not new. There have always been managers, controls, schedules, reports, and performance reviews. What has changed is the amount of information that can now be recorded. Some companies can know when you log in, how long an application remains active, how many emails you send, how many calls you make, or how long it takes to complete a task. These tools can have legitimate purposes. A company needs to organize itself, measure results, and identify problems. The conflict begins when a person starts to feel that every pause must be justified and that every action could become evidence of productivity. That is when something curious happens. We begin to act in ways that make us look busy. We may answer a message immediately even when it is not urgent. Avoid getting up for a few minutes. Keep applications open so we appear active, or feel guilty about stopping after completing a difficult task. We may even choose activities that are easier to measure instead of tasks that require thinking, analyzing, or simply concentrating for a long period of time. The work continues, but our attention becomes divided between two questions. What do I need to do? And what will it look like I am doing? That difference matters. Many valuable tasks do not produce visible signs of activity every minute. Thinking through a solution, reviewing a decision, finding an error, developing an idea, or listening carefully to a coworker can require time during which very little seems to be happening. If we feel that we must constantly demonstrate movement, we can end up confusing activity with productivity. It can also change our relationship with mistakes. When someone feels continuously evaluated, they may begin to avoid risks even when those risks are necessary for learning. Suggesting a different idea, admitting that something did not work, or asking for help may feel more dangerous if there is a sense that every action will be recorded and used to judge performance. Then another consequence appears. We start protecting our image. Instead of saying, "I do not understand this," we may try to solve it alone for too long. Instead of admitting that a task needs more time, we may hide the difficulty until the problem becomes bigger. Instead of trying a new solution, we choose the safest option because we already know how it will look in an evaluation. Little by little, a system created to measure work can end up influencing the way we work. But this issue is not limited to technology. Sometimes the feeling of being watched comes from a manager who constantly asks what we are doing, from coworkers who compare schedules, from meetings where every bit of progress has to become a number, or even from ourselves. Because after spending enough time under evaluation, we can begin carrying the supervisor inside our own minds. We finish the workday and wonder whether we did enough. We step away from the desk and feel like we should go back. We receive a message outside working hours and believe that taking too long to respond might be interpreted as a lack of commitment. At that point, perhaps no one is actually watching us. Yet we continue behaving as if someone were. That can have a quiet cost. It does not necessarily appear as a major problem overnight. It can show up as difficulty resting, constant irritation, worry before starting the workday, or the feeling that we never finish proving our value. That is why it is worth asking what we are actually measuring. If we evaluate only availability, speed, and quantity, we may overlook concentration, creativity, judgment, learning, and quality. And if we apply those same metrics to the way we see ourselves, we risk believing that our professional worth depends on always being visible. It does not. Being responsible does not mean being permanently available. Taking a break does not erase the work you have already done. Needing time to think does not mean you are doing nothing. Asking for help does not prove incompetence. In some cases, it can be helpful to review which expectations are real and which ones we have started assuming on our own. Does your job truly require an immediate response? Or have you begun doing it because you are afraid of appearing absent? Is there actually a rule about your breaks? Or do you simply feel uncomfortable disconnecting? Are you being asked for results? Or do you feel that you also have to prove every minute used to achieve them? Distinguishing between those things can return something important to us: autonomy. It can also help us communicate more clearly when a monitoring system begins to create unnecessary pressure. Asking what is being measured, how that information is used, and what results are expected is not refusing accountability. It is understanding the rules under which you are working. And when possible, it is also worth recovering small boundaries. Ending the workday when it is actually over. Not turning every minute of rest into a source of guilt. Evaluating our work by its quality and not only by how visible the effort was. Because there is a paradox. When we spend too much energy trying to look productive, we may end up with less energy to actually work well. The tools will continue to change. We will probably see new ways of measuring performance, analyzing activity, and using artificial intelligence to organize work. The important question is not only what those tools can observe. We should also ask what happens to us when we know they are watching. If you begin changing every movement out of fear of how it might be interpreted, perhaps it is time to consider how much space that gaze is taking up in your mind. Thank you for joining us on Inspira Plus. Here we continue reflecting on how the changes of modern life influence the way we think, work, and relate to ourselves. Because doing our work well matters. But living as if we must prove every moment that we are doing it can become an extra job that no one should have to carry.